Hi everyone, my name is Ivan Renteria. I'm co-owner of Cake Brothers Bakery here in Berwyn, Illinois, and today we're going to frost a cake in buttercream and we're going to cover it with fondant. I have my cake ready here. It's a yellow cake filled with fresh strawberry. So it's already been chilled and I'm about to ice it. I'll show you guys how to do that. So usually when we have a cake like this, what I like to do is beat my buttercream a little bit just to soften it up. Once you have like this silky kind of smooth consistency, this is what you'll see on the cake. First, I like to start with the crumb coat. So this is my crumb coat for the cake. The most important thing is just that I get an even layer all around. As you can see, I did that already. And then the point of this is, once I pop it in the cooler, it's gonna chill. Once it chills, it's gonna be easy for me to just add my last layer of buttercream, whether it's a soft pink, white, whatever it is, and the crumbs won't show through. So this is warm now, and I'm gonna pop it in the cooler and have it chill, and then I'll show you guys how to finish it up. My cake is now chilled, as you can see here. So I assembled it. I added a cake, filling, a little layer of buttercream in between my layers, as you can see. Once it's chilled, it's very easy for me to do my crumb coat because now it's hard and chilled. So what I'm going to do is I start out with a little buttercream. And I just want a really thin coating of buttercream on the sides. It's just so the crumbs don't come through and show through on my last finish. Now this smaller tier is it's going to go on top of the other tier that we just did. So for wedding cakes, usually the look is kind of usually simple, very clean, as opposed to traditional custom cakes, like they're colorful, crazy ideas. Wedding cakes, I mean, there is exceptions, but usually they're more traditional. You have flowers, more romantic, softer tones, gold, silver, more like special. And the finish is usually what they're looking for is very clean look. That's what we're looking for. The evenness is very important as far as the cake. So we have all our layers. They have to be very even because when they cut it, you want to see the nice layers underneath. So this looks good. I'm going to chill it and then just check on the other tier. Maybe it's ready to do the last finishing touch. So this is my cake. This is our cake. It's chill to the touch. So it's going to be easy to add the last layer. So as far as buttercream, for buttercream, there's Swiss meringue buttercream, there's Italian buttercream, Italian meringue buttercream, American. This is American buttercream we're using today. So there's lots of buttercream. There's pre-bought buttercream, there's sweet buttercream, there's not so sweet buttercream. This is an American buttercream we're making here. So it's 50% shortening, 50% butter, and powdered sugar. So I'm just gonna add a little bit on top here. Now this is the last coat to our buttercream. When I add a little dollop right there of buttercream, what I like to do is kind of with my cake stand, I rotate it. And then I like to keep my knife kind of like in a straight angle like this. So my cake is like perfectly smooth. If I do perfectly even, if I tend to move it like this, then my cake will be more like a cone shape. Or if I do it like that, it'll be, it just depends on the angle. So I try to keep it as straight as possible. As you can see, just want it smooth. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the side. So I like to add a little bit of buttercream on the sides and then like this. I added my buttercream all around and then I kind of like even my sides out. So I'll show you guys how to do that. It's hard for me to ever stop because I always feel like there's something missing, like there's an edge that's too high, or I could see a little bit of the bubbles or the air bubbles in there. Like it's hard, but just with time I learned to be like that's fine. So I'm pretty OCD about it being perfectly smooth. Now, why is it important that your cake is perfectly smooth? The smoother and the straighter your edges are at this point, so when I cover it with fondant, it's going to be perfectly smooth. So it shows through. Sometimes if your edges are not as even, or if your cake is not as perfect, it's going to show through with the last step when we cover it in fondant. So I like to leave this step pretty like even and clean, even if it's going to be covered with fondant. So as far as the sides, guys, I think this looks pretty good. It's even. There's maybe not any, a little bit of bread showing, doesn't matter in this case because it's perfectly even and it's going to be covered with fondant. Now if this cake was just buttercream frosting, then something like this would be a problem, or even a little crumb like that. But in this case, it's going to be covered with fondant, so I think we're good. Now for the edges, what I like to do is I like to have a clean spatula, and then I cut my corners like this. So from the outside to the inside. And I do that all around. And then I think this looks pretty good for the fondant here. So for this step, we're done. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to chill it, pop it in the cooler. The same thing, it's going to get hard, it's going to set, and then it's going to be ready. Once it's cool to the touch, it's going to be ready for the last layer, which is the fondant covering. So let me put that inside now. So our top tier is ready as well. It's cool to the touch, so it's going to be easy. And a little bit of buttercream. Whip it up just to make sure it's nice and smooth. Looks good. The same, I add a little dollop, and then I like to even it out. First, I like to start from the top. You could start from the sides or the top, it doesn't really matter. And then the same motion. So I'm moving my disc either counterclockwise or clockwise. I like to keep my spatula in a straight angle like this. Then I do the side. So I'm just about finished with the sides here. Again, we're going to cover this with fondant. So I just want the sides to be really smooth, really even. So that looks good. I think it looks even. Sometimes a good step that I like to do is I like to step back a little bit and just kind of like look at it. Go back again. So this looks about done. So the next step is I'm going to chill it, and then I'll show you guys how to cover them in fondant once it's cool to the touch. There's a lot of buttercream techniques. This is a good trick that I like to use. So I'm smoothing out the sides right now, and then so that looks right about done. I could do this for hours, guys. In baking, there's a lot of time, and you try to find the best and fastest way to do tricks. So usually what I see a lot of people do is they cut the edges like this, right? Like that's normal. And then they're over here and they're scraping it. So a good trick that I like to have a scraper on hand, just so it's like really quick. So it could be any bench scraper as long as it's smooth and it cleans your knife. Just saves you time. Literally every second counts. So if you're like here and you're scraping it back into your bowl, that takes time from your cake. So here we have a 20-pound bag of fondant. You could buy 5-pounders. You could pretty much get all kinds of brands, all kinds of flavors now, colors, pre-made colors. I'm gonna cut a piece of fondant. I'm gonna start kneading it just to warm it up so you guys could see. So what I like to do, usually it comes like this. And what we try to do is, so we warm it up with our hands. If we don't warm it up, let's say I just roll this out. It's going to have this kind of cracking. So it's good to kind of like warm up the fondant a little bit. I like to use powdered sugar if it sticks too much to the table. This looks good. So usually with fondant, I like to wear gloves because we are handling it so much. And this is something somebody's gonna consume, they're gonna eat. I like to wear latex gloves, especially also when you're incorporating color. There's fondant that's already colored, but if you're gonna add a color to the fondant, you like to, keep the color away from your hand. So latex gloves is kind of an easy way to do that. Fondant, usually when it comes, it looks a little bit like this, a little bit kind of like a dry texture. And depending on the humidity, like, today it's summer, so it was very easy to knead this fondant. As you can see, it's already kind of like smooth. This is what you want because this is what the cake is gonna look like. If it's too humid, it tends to stick on the table. So I like to add a little bit of cornstarch, powdered sugar. I like cornstarch because it looks clean and smooth. Usually with powdered sugar, you might have a little bit of specks in there, but it still works as well. So I think this looks perfect. Looks pretty good. As you can see, it's smooth. You don't see it. When you stretch it, there's no cracking. So that's good. Now I'm going to use silicone roller. It's easy to roll the fondant. You could use wood. You could use pretty much anything. But I like to use this because it's smooth and my finish will be smooth as well. So I start out with a big piece of fondant like this. Just with practice, you're going to be able to estimate just how much fondant you need per cake. Like today, I think this is good for my smaller cake. I grab a little powdered sugar, add it to the bottom, and then I roll it. So we're looking for like a circular motion here. You stretch, rotate, stretch, rotate. Now usually for fondant, I like my fondant to be thin. It's very sweet, so when the customer's eating it, or your friends or your family, when they're eating it, they don't want too much fondant in their mouth. So it's very sweet. It's a sugar paste, so it's all sugar. So I tend to like it very thin coat. Not too thin because then it looks bumpy. Maybe like a quarter of an eighth of an inch. So this is our top tier, guys. It's now cool to the touch. My fondant's rolled out an eighth of an inch, as you can see. Try to make it as even as possible. Sometimes I like to glide it a little bit like that. Once I've stretched it, I like to roll it, add a little cornstarch. I like to roll it on my roller like this. I'm putting it over. And what I like to do is I like to start from the top, so I like to smooth it in like this. Go all around. So I'm pulling and then I'm going like this. So some mistakes that can happen is if it's too dry, it starts to crack on the ends. So you have to move very quickly because the fondant starts drying up. So it's almost like you have to be really fast or it could tear. Okay guys, so now I have added the top tier to my cake. As you can see, it's going to be a white cake. And now I'm smoothing the edges. So what I like to go is I like to go around like this. Smooth it, see any imperfections. If there's air bubbles, I kind of like to poke them with an X-Acto if needed. Now sometimes if it's a larger cake, you like to do a dowel that goes all the way through. I'll show you guys. Sometimes for a tier cake, it's not necessary. But what I like to do is sharpen an edge like you can see here. And then I pass that through the whole cake. So once the cake has been stacked, I'm going to add some flowers. So the customer decided to get some silk flowers. It could be sugar flowers. These are not edible, by the way. So what I did is I airbrushed the flowers with edible fruit coloring, just to give it a little bit color. The customer wanted them yellow, so we're doing that. A little royal icing if you need help sticking in the cake. So I like to do it like that. So she's going for like a cascade look effect to her cake. So I started with the larger flowers and then I just filled it in with the smaller flowers, and I'm just trying to balance it out a little bit. So as you can see, it's different shades of yellow. I like wedding cakes just because I've done them for so long, so it's kind of easier for me. I like that there's always different trends, so I usually don't get bored because there's always something new coming out. So if it was the same style every year after year, that would be boring. Flower trends are big right now. Floral trends, all kinds of flowers. Rustic cakes, naked cakes are big right now. So even if it's simple with just like a rustic cake and then it has a couple of flowers in there or no flowers at all. And then I'm just gonna add a little edge. So I grabbed some of the buttercream that we did to frost the cake. I added a little bit of white coloring, so fruit coloring. So this is our buttercream. It's kind of like a cream color. I added white. Why did I add white? Because the fondant is already like white, so I kind of want to match it as much as possible to the cake. And this is the colored border that I'm gonna do for this cake. So this is like a smooth border I'm gonna do. It has no tip. It's just kind of a smooth effect, and I'm gonna do kind of like a shell border at the bottom. So I go one by one, in and then out. I push out and then I pull, push, pull. Anything that involves piping, the best tip is just practice. Practice. You have to be very patient with it. Take your time just so it's even. So you could practice on the table if you don't want it to go straight to the cake, or even swirls. All these kind of effects. This just kind of develops memory in your muscles, so it's easier for you to learn how to practice piping. Okay, guys, so this would be like a simple, elegant cake that you can make. It's just a white frosted fondant, and then it has a cascade of silk flowers, and this is what it looks like.